Good evening. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays. Grassroots democracy, a staple of New England for over 3 centuries. Alive and well in Ridgefield. It was alive and well in Bethel 12 years ago. The year was 1996. The party was the Democrats. The DTC's choice was snubbed for a vacancy on the Board of Selectmen by the Republican majority. The DTC petitioned, got a special election. Here we are in 2010. The same thing happened in Ridgefield. Yes, Marty Heiser is not in his host chair tonight. He's on as a guest. This is Matt Grimes, and I'd like to welcome to his own show, Marty Heiser.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me on this wonderful show.
And from the Republican Town Committee, Skip March.
Nice. Thank you, Matt.
So I guess, Skip, as a member of the RTC, tell us the little surprise that occurred in Ridgefield around about the 3rd of December.
Well, we, through our process, had selected our candidate to fill Joan Block's seat
on
the Board of Selectmen, her vacated seat. We had gone beyond what we really had to do or needed to do, and that we interviewed candidates and didn't have to do that, as a matter of fact. So anyway, we chose Marty Heiser. He went before the Board of Selectmen with 2 other candidates and interviewed with them, and the Board of Selectmen, by a party vote, decided to select another candidate, which was Maureen Kozlark.
Now let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Joan Block had ably served as a selectman for a few terms.
Yeah.
She had to step down for whatever reason, and she was pretty much also behind the choice of Mr. Heiser. Am I correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, Joan Block recommended Marty. The RTC, which is the representative body for Republicans in the town of Ridgefield, had recommended Marty and put that before the Board of Selectmen in town.
And Marty, you've been on the Board of Finance close to better part of a decade now. Why did you want to, I guess, change horses?
Well, I had been on the Board of Finance for about 14 years, and this opening came up because Joan Block was stepping down due to health reasons. And actually, Joan had reached out to me initially and said, Marty, I'd like you to consider running for it. Then after that, the Republican Party, in the form of its chairman, called and said, would you consider running? And I remember telling Jim Carroll, I said, I could not be more happy on the Board of Finance. I feel like I know how this board works, and I feel like I have a say here. But if this is something that the Republican Party would like me to interview for and look into, I'd be happy to do that. So I went in, and there was actually a fairly rigorous interviewing process. There was a panel of people, a lot of questions. There were a number of people that went forward to be interviewed. And even at the interview, I said, I'd be happy to stay where I am, but if this is something that, that folks feel my experience I could bring to bear on the Board of Selectmen, I'd be happy to do it. So after the interview, they let me know that I was the unanimous vote for the open seat.
Very good. And if anybody out in Ridgefield is watching tonight, they're welcome to call in. The number is 203-438-2003. 438-2003, and we'll take your questions and your comments with respect to this process. So, you've worked with Mr. Marconi for his 12 years in office, quite a bit, him being the first selectman and you being chairman and a member of the Board of Finance. So would you say that the working relationship, despite being from opposite parties and opposite ideologies, would you say that it's been a well-working relationship together?
Yeah, I think it has. On the Board of Finance, I've served with actually 3 different first selectmen, Sue Manning, and then Rudy Marconi and Abe Morelli. And I think it has been a beneficial relationship. I think at one point you had the campaign where there's a sharp presentation of differences of opinions and ideas, but after that, after the campaign is over, you put that aside. Try not to play political games, and you do what's best for the town of Ridgefield. And I think that Mr. Marconi and I have worked together reasonably well. But always there's the undercurrent of the 2-party system. which has to be respected. Always there's a separation of powers. Always the other side respects the other side in the case of, for example, spending, tax increases, things like that. And the Republican fiscally conservative voice is brought to bear on all these boards. It's certainly brought to bear on the Board of Finance. And what I see happening in the most recent chapter of our little town is that there's a sense that, hey, we don't necessarily want to hear that voice on the Board of Selectmen. We want to have 4 more liberal-leaning members of the board. We 3 Democrats want to dictate to the Republicans whom we want to have represent them and not have that dual separated government that I think has benefited the town for so many years.
So to talk about a little bit about process and
Sure.
with what Skip said and what Marty said, we have a vacancy on the Board of Selectmen. The Republican Town Committee knows it can't be a Democrat because they have 3 seats on the Board of Selectmen. They go and recruit a candidate, recommend it to the Board of Selectmen, and that candidate is not selected.
Right.
They select someone else. So under General Statute 922, which not a lot of people know about, it gives everybody in a municipality that's run by a Board of Selectmen who's not satisfied with the choice of filling the vacancy of selectmen to go out within, I believe it's 15 days, and get 5% of the electorate on a petition, and it will force a special election. Which is where we are today. And I think from the, Marty, you probably collected more signatures than anyone throughout this process, and I Skip, you collected some. The response, I would say, was, would you say it was positive?
Yeah, it was overwhelmingly positive, and more so after the Ridgefield Press came out. In the Ridgefield Press, there were many articles, letters to the editor, where this entire issue was completely vetted. And time after time, after the press came out, I had people walk up to me, whether it was in front of Parks and Rec, or at the train station, or in front of Dunkin' Donuts, and they just said, listen, I've read about this in the paper, I'm outraged, where do I sign? Didn't even have to do anything, just said, here, where do I sign? I think at last count there was over 1,000, I think 1,067 registered voters in Ridgefield, fully informed of what was going on, signed that petition. And that's 1,000 people that should not be ignored. I think there's the basic fundamental issue of separation of powers, of checks and balances. Yes, the Democrats have a ruling majority on the Board of Selectmen, but do they really need to pack the court? And I think that there was a sense that, hey, we at least deserve a seat at the table, and for them to dictate who the Republican was going to be is just beyond the pale. And that's the reaction I got from people when I was out there collecting signatures.
Now, Skip, one of the things that I want to ask you as a town committee member who's one of the 25 arbiters, I guess, of the interview process,
Sure.
One of the comments that was made in the press by the candidate that was selected was that she went to the Republican Town Committee and was told, see ya, we have a candidate. Do you want to address that a little bit?
Well, yeah, that's, I think, probably a shortened version of what really happened. But as I was mentioning before, the Republican Town Committee did not have to go through this interview process, but we felt that it was a good idea to do that. There were certainly candidates in mind that we felt would best reflect and represent the principles of the Republican Party and the Ridgefield Republican Town Committee, just as the Democrat Town Committee would do. They would find candidates that they would want to interview that would best represent them and their particular principles. We didn't have to go through that process, but we did go through that process. The feeling was, and this is based on policy, there's a lot of noise going on out there right now, as a matter of fact. So I want to make it perfectly clear, and I've seen a couple of letters going in that this was an attack on Maureen Kozlark. This was not an attack on Maureen Kozlark at all. We felt that this was an attack on the RTC and Marty Heiser and Joan Plox, who Joan Plock felt should have been representing the Republican Party and the Board of Selectmen too. But moving forward, we felt that certainly Marty should have been the candidate in there. Put him and through that interview process, put him forward as the candidate. In response to Maureen, in particular, her position on taxes in the past would not have been viewed favorably by the RTC, and she would not have been chosen or selected. So we did say, yes, it probably isn't necessary to interview you because you wouldn't be selected because we don't feel that you represented those positions. But I want to make it perfectly clear that was on a policy position that had nothing to do with Maureen Kozak herself, who was...
Another comment that was made, too, and both of you can address it, is that, the RTC is going to cost Ridgefield taxpayers $26,000 by taking us through this special election process.
Mm-hmm.
Want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, that really bothers the heck out of me. It really does. As a matter of fact, there's a lot about this whole process that really irks me. I think when the separation of powers, checks and balances, the integrity of the two-party system has been violated, there needs to be a reaction. Otherwise, you just roll over and that's that. I'm chagrined that the work of the 3 Democrats on the Board of Selectmen have brought about what's happened. I really am. I think if they could rethink themselves, they probably did not in any way anticipate this reaction, and they might have thought twice about trying to dictate to the Republican Party in Ridgefield who is going to fulfill that Republican seat, especially in light of the endorsement of Joan Plok and an unanimous endorsement of the Republican Party. But since they've chosen to play these political games, we have to go this route, and it's really unfortunate. I just think if you see what we go through on the Board of Finance to squeeze every dime out of these budgets, especially in these tough economic times, to have something like this unfold as a result of the actions of the sitting Board of Selectmen really does irk me.
So we go to a caucus now because the special election has officially been called. I guess the town committees can meet between the 5th and the 12th of January, and Republican Party will meet on the 12th at the Veterans Park.
Yeah, there will be a Republican Party caucus at Veterans Park School, the school right downtown. There will be a party afterwards. I always feel Republicans have a little bit better parties than Democrats. I don't know if Al could confirm or deny that, but I think it's true.
I'll wait for my turn.
And the Republican Party will be having a reception afterwards at Bissell's. So please do come out. On Wednesday, January 12th, 7:30 at Veterans Park. All registered Republicans, and I hope you'll consider voting for me.
Caller?
No, it's not a call. That's a text.
Oh. In any case, though, but so we go to the caucus, your name will be placed in nomination, I presume?
Yes, I mean, unless I do something dramatically wrong between now and January 12th, which is not beyond the realm of possibility. But assuming I do, I feel very confident that my name will be put forward at that caucus.
And I guess the way the process works, so that everybody at home, because a special election does not happen every day. In fact, the last time it happened, as I said, was 12 years ago in the town of Bethel. After the caucus, you have however many days any registered Republican could take out a petition. With 5% of the party enrollment can petition their way onto the ballot for the primary, which would be held sometime in February. Mm-hmm. And you can also petition to be either a third-party candidate or a petitioning candidate. The Democrats can nominate a candidate, but they won't, or they shouldn't, because that person can't be elected.
Yeah, and on that point, and this is the part that really kind of bothers me too, especially when you consider how expensive these elections are. And that is that there's this concept of a minority representation on the Board of Selectmen. And this seat that we're talking about was the Republican seat. A Democrat, even if he wins at the polls 10-1, could not take this seat. This is a Republican seat. The founders, the people that put together the charter for our town, or maybe this is a statewide statute, allow for minority representation. And that's the part that really has gotten under people's skin about this whole issue. We're talking about the Republican seat. In the Democrats, even in this week's press, I just got done reading it, the chairman of the Democratic Party, Susan Coco, has come out and endorsed Maureen Kozak for this seat, thinks the whole thing is just a travesty, and that just exactly makes my point on this whole issue. It's the Democrats that seem to be dictating who is going to represent the Republican Party. And any even fair-minded Democrat out there has got to squirm a little bit and say, wow, that doesn't seem quite right. Susan Coco coming out and endorsing the Republican candidate. Does any part of this not ring true? But we do have a caller. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, hey, Marty, Jim Carroll calling.
Thanks for calling in. Matt Grimes is hosting the show.
Hi, Jim. How are you? You there? Did we lose?
Yeah, no, Jim is there. You got a question for Jim?
I do, Jim. I guess as the party chairman in Ridgefield, we've been talking a little bit about process and a little bit about the special election. And I guess as the party chairman, why is it so important for Ridgefield Republicans to be paying attention in these coming months, and especially coming to the caucus on the 12th?
Why is it that Republicans should pay attention? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And come to the caucus and follow this process.
Well, most of the Republicans that I've talked to in town, especially when I was out getting signatures, were very upset that 3 Democrats basically appointed a Republican, the non-endorsed Republican. And also, I think that what most people don't realize is that the Republican Town Committee actually took a lot of time and effort to work with the first selectman here to come up with basically a balanced candidate that would add value to the existing Board of Selectmen, meaning that there needs to be a balance within the Board of Selectmen more than what there is currently. We spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people, interviewing candidates that were basically selected or suggested by Joan Plock, who was the outgoing selectman. And we talked to a bunch of people, and Marty came out on top here. And we felt that Marty would add a very good balance of fiscal conservativeness on the board, and to keep the majority, which is the Democrats, in check. And I think it's very important on all the boards in the town of Ridgefield, not just the Board of Selectmen. And I think that the people should be paying attention because the first selectman, basically, and as I wrote in my open letter to the town, basically just lied to my face. And I take that very personally. It didn't have to be this way. Tradition has it that the town committees, both Democrat and Republican, usually get what they nominate. Case in point, back in I think 2006, when Steve Zemo resigned, Di Masters was the Democratic Town Committee endorsed candidate. Dr. Yanity and Joan Plock voted in concert with the remaining Board of Selectmen and First Selectman, and Di Masters became a select person. This whole thing boggles my mind because all this didn't have to happen. And I put all the blame on Rudy Marconi.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, Ridgefield is not a town that you see on the front page of the paper a lot because of battles, not like a Bethel or a Brookfield or anything like that. So would you say the action of the Board of Selectmen majority, Jim, has sort of taken away the cooperation, the collaboration between two opposing parties?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Because, one thing that kept coming back in my mind was the election last November. Last November, and I hope people realize this, is that last November in Ridgefield, the town of Ridgefield, and this is not just Republicans, not just Democrats or independents or unaffiliated or libertarians or what have you, voted overwhelmingly across the board for Republican-endorsed candidates on row A. We won every seat in Ridgefield, okay? There's 167 towns in Connecticut. There are only 2 other towns that did what Ridgefield did. That's Wilton and Newton. So, I mean, I asked you guys, and I don't even know who's on the show because I don't have Comcast. If all those people that voted for Republican-endorsed candidates, and keep in mind that a lot of those candidates were endorsed by the Ridgefield Republican Town Committee, why is it that people don't trust that we put the best candidate up to fill Joan Plock's seat? And especially after Joan Plock basically got assurances that her wishes would be followed through. And let's not forget Joan Plock here, right? I mean, Joan Plock served this town since 1987. And now we have this mess on our hands. So the answer to your question is look back at November 2nd, I believe that was the election day, and look at what happened in Ridgefield. Okay, Republicans candidates won handedly. Even George Jepson didn't even win Ridgefield. He's now the Attorney General. So this is, in general, a Republican town. And for the Democrats on the Board of Selectmen to basically just disrespect the work and effort that we all put forth. And again, I really urge everybody to read my open letter to the town that's on the Ridgefield GOP site, on the blog page. And I spell everything out. And it's 100% true. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to lie about. I don't get paid for doing this. It's the truth.
Jim, I have Al Robinson on the show from the Hat City blog. Al, do you have a question for the chairman?
Oh, I got a whole lot of questions here. The first question I bring up is in terms of
I cannot hear you.
in terms of the Republican Town Committee representing the views of the Republican Party. You are a town committee.
I still can't hear you, Al.
You can't? I'm right here. Let me just put it up here. In terms of the Republican Town Committee representing the views of the Republican Party, it was Mr. Heiser who seconded the nomination of Rob Merkel. I'm sure Mr. Heiser worked very hard in terms of Rob Merkel during the primary. Given that, isn't it safe to say that, although the selectmen had the option to vote for Mr. Heiser, there is nothing legally wrong or outside of their powers to vote for somebody else?
There's nothing illegal that they did. There's no, a law that was broken, okay? There's no law that was, we've all said that, I've said, I'm on the record as saying that everybody knows it, everybody knows the state statute 9.2. What's your point?
Correct. So what I'm saying again is, we're hearing I've read a certain comments from you in certain other media outlets. I think the Ridgefield Patch was one of the articles, which you said that there's a backdoor deals that were being done, and then after this backdoor deal that was done, that Marty Heiser was not picked by the representatives of the selectmen. Another Republican, which several Republicans I've talked to in Ridgefield will call a rhino, which is a Republican in name only, which I think is one of the problems with this individual. Again, was there something wrong in terms of them picking this individual? Because I'm hearing that the process was backdoor deals, and I said to Mr. Heiser a few weeks ago when we talked about this, if the backdoor deals were done, and if they went to the back room, they came out and said Marty Heiser was the individual, then would there be a problem with the process as there is now?
Well, the backdoor deal, I don't know. I've never said that there's a backdoor deal.
You said there's backdoor discussions, and they came out. We didn't hear what they were saying behind the closed doors. They came out and they picked somebody else. And again, I say, is the problem the process, or is the problem the fact that they picked somebody besides the Republican Town Committee's pick?
Listen, Al, you weren't at the meeting.
Right.
Okay.
I can only read that what's in the papers. I'm just reading direct quotes.
I was at the meeting. There were a lot of people at the meeting. There were people at the meeting that during the recess of this, not an executive session, we're coming up to me and said there's an illegal meeting going on. So, Republicans and Democrats come up to me during the recess. So whatever is true is backdoor or whatever, the fact of the matter is we think that there was an illegal meeting that transpired at that night.
Okay.
So let me just
go ahead.
something. Okay, because this is really important. Okay, so this is what no one has picked up what I'm about to tell you, and I haven't seen it in the paper, I haven't read it on a blog or what have you. So if the selectmen would have came back, okay, and voted 2-2, so let's say if Rudy would have kept basically what he told me was his word, and that was he had no problem with with Marty. So if it was Marty was 2-2. So Rudy and Andy Bodner voted for Marty, and Di and Barbara voted for Maureen. It was deadlocked, right? That would be deadlocked. So what happens there? No one's asked this question. So what happens there is that by statute, the appointment goes to town hall. The 4 elected Republicans that reside in town hall, which are the treasurer, the town clerk, the registrar of voters, and the tax collector, then appoint the open seat on Board of Selectmen. So that would not have cost the town of Ridgefield a cent. It would have solved this day after December 1st. And no one's talking about this. That was an option. Rudy knows it, and everybody at that table knows that. So why couldn't he just stood by his word and supported Marty?
Well, I mean, in terms of his word, I think I would like to hear from Mr. Marconi about his word, because there's a lot of accusations in terms of you call him a liar that I would love for him to respond to. I'd love to have him on the show to respond to that, because it's pretty strong charges from a person that I admire and I respect.
It was quite small. So why don't you get a lie detector test?
Well, I mean, we're not. Jim. All due respect, Jim. We're not Geraldo Rivera show here. We're not going to go through all that. I'm just saying, again, you're making some strong charges over an individual in which Mr. Heiser also respected also. Again, my point is real simple. If the problem is the process, and the problem which happened was the process, which was one of the complaints that I read in certain periodicals, including the Ridgefield Press, including the Ridgefield Patch, if the process was exactly the same way and they came out and they said Marty Heiser is our pick, would the Republican Town Committee have a problem with that and still force a special election?
That question makes no sense to me, because that's what
I don't see how I can't, because one of your chief complaints was that the process was all messed up. That we had these certain Democrats on the selectmen pick somebody else instead of Mr. Heiser. It's a big conspiracy. It's a big problem because the Democrats picked somebody that we did not like. So I'm saying again, if the selectmen picked somebody that you guys did like, then it's a problem with the process, or it's a problem with somebody that they picked.
So we didn't like the process. So it just so happens, and the beauty of living in Connecticut is that we have State Statute 9-222 to help the balance of power. This law has been in the books since 1950s.
No, and I understand. I understand. Now, I understand that it's been in the books for a long period of time. But again, I'm saying this. If your problem was the process, and you walked into this knowing that this is going to be the process, that you have Democrats controlling the fate of a Republican selectman seat, why did you not have a problem with it before walking in here? It seems to me that you guys, the problem is that Mr. Heiser was not picked, not the process. Because again, if it was the process, why go through going in front of these selectmen, these Democrats, in the first place?
Jim, can I ask something?
That
question makes no sense to me.
I can't see why it doesn't. It seems to make a lot of sense to me.
It really makes no sense.
Jim, this is Matt Grimes talking. I think maybe I can ask the question a little bit more clear. From what you were saying earlier, from what Skip March has said here tonight, there's been a tradition, I guess, in Ridgefield that when the Democrats bring somebody forward for a vacancy, the Republicans support it. And likewise, when the Republican Town Committee brings somebody forward to fill a Republican vacancy, the Democrats have supported it over the years. And I think from what you were saying, Mr. Marconi kind of threw that out the window.
Well, that, and also, as I said, and again, Al wasn't at the meeting. Matt, I don't think you were at the meeting, but
No.
Marty was, but he was out of the room during when they called a recess, and you can't call a recess. You could call an executive session now, but you can't call a recess. There was no vote taken for executive session, and it was a recess. That is the process that was wrong. Okay.
If the process is wrong, have you filed a complaint against that particular meeting and call it invalid? Have you filed a complaint about the meeting? And ask for a redo on the meeting itself. If you're calling the meeting invalid, there's certain remedies you can do by state statute, by town statute, I'm sure. They can call that meeting illegal and ask for a new meeting. Have you asked for that yet?
There's a complaint, and it's in a process, and I have no control over that process.
Well, it would seem to me for the town, for the people who pay taxes in the town of Ridgefield, for you to take the avenue saying this is a legal meeting, we need a brand new meeting, as opposed to spending tens of thousands of dollars on a special election, would be the way to go at this point. But it seems I'm still questioning, why would you go towards the special meeting route if you felt the process was wrong, why step into this process in the first place, knowing that the Democrats control your fate? And they have every legal obligation. They didn't do anything illegal. They picked somebody else as opposed to somebody that you wanted to pick, which might not necessarily be the will of the entire Republican Party.
A lot of us don't think, Marty doesn't think that the balance of power is there, and I'm not happy with what Rudy did, and I put all the blame on Rudy Marconi on this whole situation. He and I know what we both talked about, and he told me he had no problem with Marty, and then he changed his vote. So that's my issue. Again, we have every right legally to do what we're doing. 9-222 gives us the right to petition, and it's democracy in action, Al. I don't know why you don't see it that way, but I see it that way, and about 1,060 people that signed our petition see it that way. So we are going to let the people decide. We hear it every year when it comes to budgets. We hear it for a lot of things. Let the people decide. We're going to let the people decide April 27th, and so be it. And that's what's going to happen. And again, we're doing what the law allows us to do.
Skip March has been waiting very patiently to talk, so go ahead, Skip.
Hi, Jim. No, I think the critical, to your point, Al, the critical point here is that Marty was our choice, or is our choice. And what's equally important is the Ridgefield Republican Town Committee is there to represent the Republicans in Ridgefield, just as the Democratic Town Committee is there to represent the Democrats in Ridgefield. We put forth a candidate that we felt would best reflect the Republican values and principles and would ably fill the seat of Joan Plock. Very, very simply. There wasn't any reason in the world why Marty should be chosen. The process may be there because you have to go through an interview process. You could fall flat on your face in the interview. Something could be revealed that was untoward about your background if they wanted to go through that through the interview process. This is just part of the vetting process. So it is important to do that. I mean, and we went through that. I was there at the meeting. Marty's interview was as good, if not better, than anybody's. Marty's qualifications in terms of his public expertise and commitment, his private enterprise, his expertise and commitment there. Anybody on that board was as strong as anybody who was interviewing. So, given that he is there to represent, or he was chosen by the committee that represents Republicans in town, there's not a reason in the world why he shouldn't have been chosen, and he wasn't. They wanted to pick their Republican. We're the Republican Town Committee. We want our Republican. That is absolutely true. And Marty should have been chosen.
Skip and Jim, kind of a follow-up on that.
Yeah.
I know there's no Democratic candidate in this, and a registered Democrat cannot hold this seat on the Board of Selectmen. But is it safe to say, should she become a candidate, that Maureen Kozlark is the Democrats' candidate in this special election?
Well, you can answer that very quick. Number one, she was chosen by the three Democrat members of the Board of Selectmen, and Susan Coco, who's the Democrat chairman in town, for all intents and purposes, came out and endorsed her. I mean, all these letters from Democrats are coming out endorsing Maureen Kozlark. That would seem to me that she's their choice, and as Republicans. And this is a Republican seat. The Republican Town Committee chose Marty Heiser. As Republicans, we want Marty Heiser. That's very simple.
If the Democrats on the selectmen picked Marty Heiser, would you say that the Democrats' choice or the Democrats' candidate would be Marty Heiser for selectmen?
Oh, that's a silly argument.
Why not?
No. That isn't why they would do it. They would pick Marty Heiser because he is able, capable, experienced, and the right person. Because he reflects the Republican Town Committee's, the Republican principles as articulated by the Republican Town Committee. It was Joan Plock's endorsement also to have Marty Heiser on there. Everything was in place for Marty Heiser to be on that seat.
Well,
to say that if the Democrat town committee people pick Marty, then but that's a silly argument.
Why is it silly? That's a silly argument. Come on. More on reading.
There are, and it started with the Democrat Board of Selectmen.
A lot of comments about the Republican who was picked. A lot of derogatory comments about this individual, saying that she's not really a Republican. I mean, technically, A, I think she is a Republican. B, she was a Republican that was not interviewed by your town committee, saying that she had some. They had another.
Because
pick.
she never would have been selected.
Why?
She never would, because we felt that she didn't reflect the principles of the Republican Town Committee.
She was not
That's
interviewed
fine.
because she never would have been selected. She was not. You just said it. She was not interviewed because she was never.
Time out. Chairman Carroll wants to say something.
That's an incredible statement to make.
Guys.
So therefore, because she was not, she would never be selected. She was not given an opportunity to be interviewed. And basically, it's what you just said.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can talk to that. I actually talked to Maureen prior to the RTC meeting where we endorsed Marty, and one of the prerequisites was with Joan was that her replacement should be a current office holder, and we respected Joan's wishes when we approached folks that she wanted to be considered. So, we just that was one of the prerequisites that Joan had, and we respected that.
Okay, Jim, we're going to have to cut you off because we got other callers that want to call in.
Sure, okay. I appreciate you giving me time, and everybody have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, okay?
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so caller, if you're trying to call in, 203-438-2003 is the number. Do we have anybody calling right now? Oh, I guess we will soon. In any case, though, I guess it's... is this really a battle? What I want to ask Skip, kind of a follow-up on the last thing you said, is this a battle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party, or is this a battle for the heart and soul of Ridgefield?
This is a battle.
Or neither, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. No, this isn't a battle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party, and we're quite clear in what we stand for, and we chose the candidate who is going to best reflect that. I don't know if it's a battle for the heart and soul of the town of Ridgefield, but what is going on here goes right to the core of our political process. And quite frankly, in our view, and that's why we're challenging this, and that's why a special election is in the statute, so you can challenge this kind of mischief that was that the Democrat members of the Board of Selectmen embarked upon. What we're challenging and what we're fighting for essentially is the candidate that we put forward and we think is best capable, best able, and best reflects the principles of the Republican Party.
I guess it's kind of an outsider to Ridgefield.
Yeah.
One thing that intrigued me was how quick you were able to get those signatures, because I saw the process unfold twice. Once in Bethel 12 years ago, and again, it was a very similar situation. The Democratic Town Committee had forced a special election. And in Brookfield, about maybe 8 years ago, the Board of Selectmen, it was a similar situation to what Jim described, where it was a 3-member Board of Selectmen. Mm-hmm. The Selectmen voted 1-1, I believe, so the Republican Board of Electors filled the seat. But there were a lot of people that thought there should be an open primary and there should be an open... But we didn't get the signatures because there really wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for it. We came up about 50 short. So Anyway, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Go ahead, caller.
How are you folks doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, when I grew up in Ridgefield, it was a predominantly Republican-controlled town. But I have two questions. Is there anybody currently on the, I don't know about the first selectman, but anybody Board of Selectmen have any veterans experience? And the other thing that I have is a question. Is there an independent town committee in Ridgefield? And just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas. Take care.
Thank you very much. I think we do have an independent party in Ridgefield, and they are eligible to run a candidate or cross-endorse a candidate in this upcoming election. Am I correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Are there multiple parties? It's the Working Family Party in Ridgefield?
No, it doesn't work that way with municipals, no. With municipals, you have the two major. Well, first of all, the way it works in Connecticut is any party that gets 20% of the vote for governor can run for any office municipal-wise. Municipal-wise, you need 1% in an election, and then you get a spot on the ballot. So there's just 3. Working Families never ran a municipal candidate in Richfield.
There are with the caller's other question, there are a number of elected officials in town that have military experiences. There's a very, very active American Legion Hall, VFW, Marine Corps League, and an incredible veterans presence in town, and they're highly respected. I don't know if there is on the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Marconi, a veteran?
I'm not sure. He may have served. I'm really not sure. We have another call.
Okay, caller, you're on the air.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, this is Chris Murray calling in. Hi, Marty. How are you?
Good.
But I don't have a question per se, just a couple of observations with respect to this special election and the petition process, which I participated in. I think people should be happy that democracy is so accessible in Richfield, Connecticut. Even if some in our community, take issue with the merits of the special election itself, I don't think we should ever take these mechanisms, these remedies for granted. Can you imagine, imagine living in communist China or Soviet Russia and not having these types of remedies? I'm not one of these people who think it's fashionable to be cynical about these things. I just think that this is not just politics as usual. I think if you don't take advantage of these types of remedies, as we have here, you kind of abdicate power over your future and over your children's future. I'm not at all one to think that's a wise course of action. So to those people who kind of question the merits of it, I have to say, as a number of Democrats said to me as I was out petitioning, they said to me, I wouldn't like it if this happened to me or my candidate. So in that respect, it's certainly important for people to keep an open mind to take advantage of what democracy offers.
Thank you very much. Al, question for you.
Thanks, Chris.
In a city that's run by either alderman or councilman, there's no special election remedy. Have there been cases in the years you've been following it where maybe a council seat was filled, Democrat or Republican in Danbury, where if this special election process was there, that candidate might not have been selected?
I don't know the whole. You're dealing with a municipality like Danbury is completely different from the selectmen.
I understand.
I don't quite understand. I don't know. I can't even think of a scenario where that actually transpired. I actually think, and I could be absolutely wrong in this, I think the town committee, in terms of a council seat, has jurisdiction.
The membership still has to say yea or nay, though. They can't.
I think it's town committee.
They can't pick somebody else.
I don't think that based upon this scenario here, I don't think that a city council will have a yea or nay on. Again, I can't. In fact, no, I take that back. No, there was a situation where Phil Curran, who's a council person right now, was nominated by the Republican town committee, and they were voted upon by the entire city council. So, there are scenarios where the city council voted. I don't recall. I don't know. I haven't been watching it enough to see a scenario where an endorsed candidate is turned down by the entire council. I don't. But again, if they wanted to do that, and if they felt they wanted to do that for certain reasons, they have every right to do so, and they're within their legal bounds to do so. The problem that I do have, and there's several problems, because it seems like there's a lot of double talk going on still to this time. Again, I have to give this to Mr. Marconi. I wish the town committee for the Republican Ridgefield was on the phone again. If the problem is the process, and again, if every scenario went down the way it did, and again, I read all the periodicals, I read the Ridgefield Patch, the Ridgefield Press, the News Times, I read the comments, I read the articles, I read the quotes. If the process was exactly the same, and if Marty Heiser was the individual pick, will we still have the same venom, and will we still have a need for a special election? My guess is probably no. And if it is no, then why complain about the process? Isn't it really more about they didn't pick somebody that you guys wanted? The same town committee, as I recall, during the recent congressional primary race, a lot of Ridgefield Republicans went for Rob Merkel over Dan DiBasella, who was the endorsed candidate coming out of the convention. So I think it's a little hypocritical.
Well, the Ridgefield Town Committee endorsed Rob Merkel before the convention. So
And
I
they
don't
worked
know.
for him very hard after the convention.
And I think they worked very hard for Dan DiBasella in the election.
Well, absolutely. There were members of the
again,
Republican Town Committee
primary.
that worked for both of them. That wasn't a Republican Town Committee decision, but the Republican Town Committee came out and they came out and endorsed Rob Merkel before the convention, right? And that was it. So it wasn't double talk, and we're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
The
convention was out. A lot of Republicans saying sure.
A lot of the Ridgefield Republican Town Committee people worked for Rob Merkel, worked their tails off.
Yeah, but what you have is three Democrats making that choice. You didn't have three Republicans challenging Marty Heiser. You had three Democrats.
And again, in all due respect, again, if that was your will going into this thing, if that's your mindset now, what happened prior to going into this meeting? You knew that going into this meeting.
No.
So where was all the venom going into this meeting? Again, I feel that if the Democrats would have voted in the way you wanted to, you would not have a problem with this.
Well, of course. You're right.
Then the problem is not the process. So you can't blame the process. And I hear a lot of this blaming on the process. That's the problem I have. You're just upset that they didn't pick the way you wanted to pick. And that's the real problem.
No, but not the way we wanted to pick.
It's not the process.
The person who wasn't picked was the person that was to represent the Republicans in the town.
We got another caller.
We got another caller. Republicans in the town.
Go ahead, Chris.
This was an effective disenfranchisement of the entire Republican Party, and the reasoning that the three Democrats applied, or really Manners and Masters applied, their reasoning was very specious. So, you see, I have a problem with the process. We certainly do have a problem with the capricious and specious nature of the reasoning they applied. The criteria they used to evaluate the candidates had nothing to do with the candidates themselves, as much as it had to do with their kind of agenda. Barbara Manners talked about keeping Marty on the Board of Finance, where he's done, good for the town. That has nothing whatsoever to do with the issue of evaluating him for suitability for this job. The reasoning, fails. So I think, if to hang your hat on the fact that there's some apparent hypocrisy to you about us having a problem with the process based on the results. I mean, you've got a good point, except for the fact that you can't divorce yourself from the utter failure of the Democrats on the board to apply any standard here.
But again,
I take issue with not just the process, but with what I'll call, if not dishonesty, the laziness of these three members of the Board of Selectmen who made this decision.
If we got other callers out there, the number, we have 10 minutes left on the air, 203-438-2003, 203-438-2003. And I think the process is very, very important discussion because it was the process that probably, my guess is the three Democratic selectmen did not know that 9222 even existed. I think that hit everybody like a ton of bricks when this petition came out. You don't think and we're talking about the greater Danbury area where this has happened. How many times in Bethel? Once in Bethel. 12 years ago.
And Marconi.
And once in Brookfield and failed.
Everybody knows about Bethel. Look, again, I think that they knew, everybody knew, they made a decision. It might not be a decision that you might like, but they made a decision, which was also legal. It was a legal decision.
I am willing to bet that if
the meeting is again illegal, I can't wait for you guys to file on this. It's been over a month. I haven't seen any paperwork filing against an illegal meeting. And I'm knowing the Republicans, the way how rabid you are in Ridgefield, you should have filed paperwork.
I'm willing to bet
saying it's an illegal meeting and cite the reasons why.
That if the Board of Selectmen knew that 9222 existed and this was going to catch fire the way it did, they would have never made the decision that they did.
Well, I think it still remains to be seen how much fire has been caught. I mean, I think come the springtime, about the time this election happens, and when the budget's happening, And when there's a town public meeting and Mr. Heiser has to speak towards the general public, and certain members of the general public will say, "Hey, wait a second, aren't you running for a special election it'll cost us between $20,000 to $30,000, and weren't you the fiscal conservative who works to make sure every nickel is being spent in the right direction?" There's going to be a lot.
I don't know about
during the budget
I don't know about you, Al, but I don't put a price on democracy. That's me.
Full disclosure. I mean, in terms of full disclosure, our party affiliations on this panel is a little skewed in a certain direction.
Skip, go ahead. You've been waiting patiently. Skip, go ahead.
No, I keep making your point there, Al, about the party affiliations.
No, well, I'm just saying, in terms of our party affiliations, I'm trying to be as objective as possible with a little progressive lean to it. But Marty Heiser is a good friend of mine, and we've talked about this on several occasions. I think that for an individual who will be working for a selectman seat that will only be occupied for a couple of months before there is another election period for that particular seat again, given our current economic problems and given the amount of money that is going to be spent for this particular seat, I think there's going to be some questions to be raised.
So because
I agree with that.
Is it more about sour grapes, somebody upset and whining because they didn't get their seat, or is it about the will of the real Republicans in Richfield?
Let me ask you this: if this happened to the Democrats in town, do you think they would or would not respond the same way?
I don't know. I would say
if you had to take a guess, if three Republican board members stood up there and picked their Democrat, what do you think the DTC would do?
I would do this. I would let's make it even easier. Let's say there's 3 Republican selectmen, and I had a Democrat. I was a Democratic town committee. I had my nominee. I'm going in there for this, and you guys basically railroad me. I would think this thing through and say, hey, look, think about what's for the best of the town of Ridgefield during our current economic times, given the time in which this election is going to go down, during the budget process, when Mr. Heiser, who is the chairman of the Board of Finance, which we've never heard any problems with him in terms of chairperson of the Board of Finance. In terms of finance and a selectman government, I think the Board of Finance is more important than the Board of Selectmen because they have the final say on the price tag of certain items. In terms of being a fiscal conservative.
That's not a judgment that we're making. That's not a judgment we're making. We're making a judgment about...
I'm talking about the voters of the town of Ridgefield who weigh all these options when they go out and vote.
To answer your question, Skip, in Bethel in 1996, what you're saying is exactly what happened. The Republican majority on the Board of Selectmen filled its seat with the Democrat that they wanted, and exactly the same thing happened, and the result was, I believe, a 57-43 win for the DTC's candidate at the end of the day. The ironic thing is that the DTC's candidate is now the Republican chairman of Bethel's Board of Finance.
And if you want to talk about Bethel, there's a situation where you had a now former first select person for the town of Bethel. You guys picked somebody else. He wouldn't back down. He was stubborn about it. And because of that, you lost your seat to Matt Knickerbocker. Anybody who evaluates that particular election knows for a fact that if it wasn't for
we're talking about two different things.
Robert Burke,
we're talking about two different things.
Would have won. Well, I don't think, not really.
How did we get on Larry Kravis?
Let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Okay, because we've been doing a lot of talking. I know it's a little one-sided, 3-1 here. So I want to be nice.
I can hold my own.
I like you. I met you once before, and I like you. What?
Al's fine. Al strikes fear in the heart of
I'm getting ready for that Boxing Day party.
Is there any reason, from what you've read in the paper, why Marty Heiser should not have been chosen?
No, absolutely not.
In terms of qualifications
of any candidate, no.
Is there any reason why he shouldn't have been chosen? In terms of the endorsement of the RTC, endorsement from Joan Plock, and his qualifications, both in the private and the public sector.
Again, as your chairperson, as you have carefully said, and somebody who's followed politics and know the importance of attending meetings, I don't know what happened or transpired at that meeting. So I can't say what was in their minds when they made that vote. It'd be unfair for me to say something like that as somebody who's only read other people's accounts about what happened. So I can't tell you why they did that.
I think it's probably pretty.
But I've heard certain comments in the media about the individual who was picked, calling her a rhino. She's very lean in favor of education and spending in education. Certain things that certain Republican people probably shouldn't have said that in the press, but they did a lot of things that really, slimed this individual, in my opinion.
What's sliming?
Well, Simon is,
Nobody has besmirched her character. Nobody's attacking her.
Besmirched her political record, which I think is pretty strong.
Fair game. Of course, you're going to challenge somebody on their vote and their political positions. That's what this is all about, and that's all anybody's challenged her on.
Well,
nobody's challenged her on her character or who she is or her capabilities or anything like that.
Well, I think that, look, if it was me and you said, if I'm a Republican that you might not like, but I'm a Republican with a capital R to it, and you said I was picked because the Democrats love me and I'm actually a Democrat under a veil, I'd be a little upset about that.
Yeah, but Al, you only need to open up the Ridgefield Press this week.
Right.
And the chairperson of the Democratic Town Committee in the Democratic View section of the paper comes out with a glowing endorsement of this Republican.
Right.
What more needs to be said?
Yeah, none of those Democrats.
Which, by the way, everybody ought to read that piece because it was a bizarre rant.
None of those Democrats can vote at the Republican caucus coming up in January. None of those Democrats can vote at the caucus.
Trust me, I'm not speaking on behalf of the chair people of any committee. Because somebody who's followed politics, I don't trust any chairperson of any committee in any place in Greater Danbury.
That was hurtful. Yeah.
Democrat, hey.
Lynn Tabersack, are you watching? Did you hear what he just said, Lynn?
She knows. She knows. Her, Alice Hutchinson, all of them, all the Democrats. Look, again, if you want to go down this road, fine. I have a problem. What was the main problem? Is it the process? Is it the fact that they didn't pick your candidate? And as Republicans, you're willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars to make a point for an individual who will only be on the selectmen for a matter of a couple of months. And I think even after the budget process, he's going to come on to this. If Marty wins, it's after the budget process. It's on there for a couple of months, and you got to go run for election again.
So, because it costs money, we shouldn't give the people the right to vote. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying this. If you had a problem with the process, why not complain before walking into that process? You're walking into the lion's den with 3 Republicans holding your fate. And why even do that in the first place if that was your problem?
3 Democrats, yeah.
3 Democrats. Why even do that in the first place? I haven't heard a
because
real
you have
answer
to.
on why.
Because you have to. That is the process. I mean, to change that process would take months and months and months.
And say, whatever they say, we're going for a special election. Forget that. We're not trusting these people. Let's have the people of Ridgefield vote for who they want.
No, we felt you ought to follow the process, which we're continuing to do, by the way, by having a special election. And we went out and very easily, I would add, got over 1,000 signatures. I mean, people were pretty ready to sign.
In the News Times,
we're out of time.
The candidate said that a lot of people regretted voting that.
We're about out of time. The Ridgefield Republican Caucus will take place January 12th at Veterans Park. Any registered Republican may attend. It begins at 7 p.m.
7:30.
7:30 p.m.
There'll be a reception immediately following at Bissell's.
In the meantime,
cash bar?
I believe it's going to be a cash bar since we're fiscally conservative. But there may be some very hearty hors d'oeuvres available for Republicans, stalwarts.
In the meantime,
on a cold
we'll
January
say
night.
Merry Christmas and good luck, Chicago Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.